I am so disappointed. Flabbergasted. Hello and welcome to Killing Time with Rashida. I am your sweet and slightly stabby host. Let's just talk about it. Only Murders in the Building, Season 2, finale episode. The good news, if you guessed that Poppy, aka Becky Butler, was Bunny's killer, then we were both right. Yay. The bad news is that being right feels bittersweet after watching that episode, at least for me. The first face we see as the episode begins is Becky Butler, and I was so excited because I thought, yes, there is no way that Cinda recognizes this woman as this woman. I talked about my prediction that Cinda had no idea Poppy was Becky Butler in my episode 8 recap video. We see a flashback of how Poppy met Cinda, and Poppy is even more of a mastermind than I gave her credit for. This woman staged her entire disappearance and then pitched it to Cinda as a podcast idea and secured a job from it. Back to the present, Poppy meets the trio at the Pickle Diner, and they have recently found out that she's Becky Butler and want her help exposing Cinda as the murderer. And Poppy was playing that part, being perfectly sad and mousy, except did you notice she slipped into her true character for a moment when she cut off Charles and said, just get to it. Becky cut the meeting short. I have to call her Poppy. It feels weird calling her. She's Poppy to me. So before Poppy leaves the restaurant, the diner, she orders a liverwurst and marmalade sandwich. I say arrest her for that. Forget the murder. That's an arrestable offense. But unless the Upper West Side, or specifically the Pickle Diner, is known for its delicious liverwurst and marmalade sandwiches, Poppy must have been to the diner before to know that it was even on the menu. So this was our first bit of confirmation that Poppy met Bunny at the diner the day she was killed. Then Mabel realizes, hey, this sandwich is number 14 on the menu. 14 sandwich. That's what Bunny said as she was dying, not 14 savage. So Bunny's dying, and with her last breath, she tells Mabel what sandwich the killer ordered. That was the meaning we've been waiting for all this time. I just expected Bunny's last words to point to something interesting when the trio finally figured it out. Like, why didn't they ask Evans, which is one of my favorite Agatha Christie books? The victim's last words were, why didn't they ask Evans? And I won't spoil it for you, but when the meaning of the victim's last words were revealed in that story, it's like, whoa. But this was a sandwich. And that was the beginning of the letdown that I experienced with this episode. Moving on, Charles, Mabel, and Oliver gather most of the gang for a killer reveal party, an invitation-only denouement, if you will, that began with accusing Cinda of Bunny's murder, and then after a weird slow-motion flash mob sequence and a tomato slicing demonstration, moved to Mabel accusing Alice of Bunny's murder. Then Alice stabs Charles, and when Cinda begins comforting and praising a distraught Mabel, Poppy loses it. She rants, she sneezes, she mentions a girl in the passageway the night Bunny was murdered, which only the killer would have known about. And I know Poppy was distressed in that moment, but that being how Poppy was caught was anticlimactic for me. She gave herself away with a slip of the tongue. Poppy masterminded her disappearance, Bunny's murder, and a scheme to frame Mabel for it. She's been living under a false identity and working right under the nose of the woman who traveled across the country to find her. And don't forget that Mabel returned to her hometown with Cinda and managed to hide in plain sight while everyone was running circles around her looking for her. But that's how she gets caught, a slip of the tongue. So Poppy killed Bunny because she wanted the Rose Cooper painting, and she thought that framing Mabel would give her podcast fame as well as Cinda's approval, and Krebs would get a promotion for solving the case. We learned that it was Poppy who texted the trio to get out of the building the evening of Bunny's murder. I don't exactly know why. I guess to ensure that Mabel wouldn't return to her apartment until the crime scene was fully set up. And we learned that Cinda was totally innocent, at least regarding the murder and Becky's fraudulent disappearance. My theory about Lucy was wrong. She did not remove the knife from Bunny's wound and replace it with a knitting needle to frame Mabel and secure her place in Charles's life. But I stand by that prediction as having the potential to have been a really cool twist in the story. And I was hopeful, even down to the last 3 minutes of that episode, that Charles would pull Lucy aside and say, hey, I know it was you who put that knitting needle inside Bunny and that you tried to frame Mabel. Before I go on, thank you for being here. Maybe you came here from TikTok. Maybe this is the first video of mine that you've ever seen. Either way, reacting to this show with you has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed reading your thoughts and predictions. I do plan to react to season 3 of Only Murders in the Building. In the meantime, I'll talk about other mystery and crime series, films, and books, sprinkling in some other genres as well. And just FYI, I often read and watch killing stories that are a bit darker than Only Murders in the Building, so if that's your thing, subscribe and stick around. Back to Only Murders in the Building. As you may be able to tell, I wasn't very happy with how the season ended. My biggest issue is that murder mysteries are all about misdirection. That's half of the fun of it. But I feel those misdirections should lead somewhere, if not to the solving of the murder mystery itself. But the season's over, and we're left with all of these open threads. The identity of Marv's daughter, who I guess isn't any of the characters that we know, Ivan's curious behavior, Howard's black eye, Alice including the All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma podcast in the puzzle that she gave Mabel. All these open threads that didn't end up leading anywhere. They have nothing to do with Bunny's murder. They have nothing to do with nothing. And that irks me. So the show fast forwards a year, and we see Oliver directing a Broadway show, and Charles is one of the actors. There's clearly some bad blood between Charles and another performer, Ben, played by Paul Rudd. Charles tells Ben to stay away from her, and later Ben collapses and dies on stage. So the next victim isn't even a resident of the Arconia. If you haven't seen it, I released a video predicting who might be murdered for season 3. I'll link that in the description and on the end screen. I'm not even upset that I was wrong about the next victim. I just feel that a contract was violated. The show is called Only Murders in the Building. I could even understand if the victim wasn't a resident of the Arconia but was murdered in the building. Technically, that would still be a murder in the building. All I know is if someone isn't murdered in that building in season 3, I'm writing the White House and Shonda Rhimes. I'm writing the White House and Shonda Rhimes to take over and fix this if someone isn't murdered in that building in season 3. Let's end on a high note, because the season did end with some nice moments. Charles finally asks out Joy, the makeup artist from the Brazos set, and we see him and Lucy together. Mabel and Alice have reconciled, and Will reveals to Oliver that he knows that they are not biologically related and he does not care. Oliver is his father. Okay, I know I said we'd end on a high note, but I may have lied, because I do feel that because of how the season ended, there are some missed opportunities to extend some drama into season 3 and just further develop the characters that we've met and grown to love. For example, when the scene with Will and Oliver began toward the end of this episode, I realized that, Oliver and Teddy talked about the paternity test results in Oliver's apartment with Mrs. Gambolini, she's a bird, who we know, whatever, repeats everything. So I thought, oh yes, Oliver's going to be in here and Mrs. Gambolini is going to repeat something said between Teddy and Oliver that will reveal to Will that Oliver isn't his biological dad. And then the scene will end and the drama will just pick up in season 3. So that didn't happen. And that's fine. But that means we don't even get like that drama of Will feeling betrayed because Oliver wanted to keep this a secret from him. So then what was the point of Oliver even asking Teddy and Roberta not to tell Will about the paternity test results if in the next episode he's just going to start to tell Will and Will will say, I don't care. Like, where's the fun in that? Where's the drama in that? And then Jenny from the block, no, just kidding. Jenny B had a really cool prediction that Mabel and Theo would hook up. Thank you for this, Jenny. Your idea made me think of how cool it would be if there were a love triangle between Theo and Alice and Mabel, with Mabel right in the middle of it all. But it doesn't look like that will happen either. And I know that these are just predictions, but if the show had done something that I didn't predict or that no one else predicted, but then gave us something that was really cool and like out of this world, I would have been fine with that. I would have been excited that I was like blown away. But so I'm hopeful that next season will give us something new and exciting to watch and react to. Then again, if Charles ends up in the frame for this Ben's murder, which that's what it looks like the show is setting up, with Charles and this guy having words before he was murdered. If so, then the show might be playing the same note as it already did this season with Mabel. I do wonder who is the her that Charles warned Ben to stay away from. Could it be Joy, Lucy, Mabel, some other her entirely? And I expect that we'll see Oliver, Will, Teddy, Theo, and hopefully a lot more of Will's mother, Roberta, because we've barely seen her and she is alive. I expect we'll see them navigating this new family landscape in season 3. But I'm irritated. Those are my thoughts. I hope that the energy I'm giving in this video isn't as anticlimactic as the energy that I got from this episode. I'm just disappointed. I'm just blah about it. I'm happy that, we were right. Poppy's the murderer. But so those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments and we'll chat soon. Okay, bye.